our native land, our native land, our native, our native, our native land. Hoya, hoya, our native land.
Hey everybody, I'm Tchadas Leo, host of Our Native Land through Czech Podcast Studios in Victoria, British Columbia. Before we get to today's guest, I'd like to do a territory acknowledgement. I acknowledge with respect the Lekwungen people on whose traditional territory Czech Studio stands upon, and to all the Indigenous tribes that are part of the Coast Salish, New Channel, and Kwakwaka'wakw on Vancouver Island. I thank these nations and traditional land keepers for allowing us to live, work, and play on their lands. And I thank you, the listener and viewer, for joining us again on another episode of Our Native Land. Today's guest is Jill Featherstone. She's a Canadian-born Indigenous author, blogger, university professor, motivational speaker, and workshop facilitator. Empowering Indigenous youth has always been on Jill's forefront of whatever she is doing. In 2013, Jill founded the Featherstone Support Services, a service committed to helping all people, Indigenous and non-Indigenous, uncover inner strengths, battle stigma with positive self-image, and share stories and wisdom to empower each other along life's journey. In November 2020, Jill released her debut novel, The Tale of Tiger Lily. The description of the book reads, Tiger Lily of the Picanini tribe is young and beautiful, but behind those almond-shaped eyes, she harbors a deep sadness. When Tiger Lily was barely of walking age, her mother and infant brother died during childbirth, leaving only Tiger Lily and her doting father, Chief Great Little Big Panther. Her life has been planned out for her from the beginning, including who she'll marry. Tiger Lily enters into a forbidden love and is left heartbroken, vowing that her scorned heart will never heal. But when Captain Hook comes to Neverland hunting Peter Pan and takes Tiger Lily as his prisoner, things will never be the same for her. Tiger Lily finds it deep within herself to move past the heartache and live her life as the creator planned. Yet fate is not on her side. Captain Hook returns, takes what Tiger Lily cherishes most in this world and forces her to make difficult decisions that will affect her entire tribe. This sounds like an amazing book and can be purchased through Amazon, Barnes & Noble's, Book Depository, and Indigo. You can find the link online, and we'll get to that in a bit. On top of everything she does professionally, Jill is a proud mother of 8 and a grandmother of 4. Jill, welcome to Our Native Land.
Thank you for having me.
Hey,
Hi.
Hi. Well, I loved talking to you to get to know you. I think we got along great earlier in the week, and I'm super excited to talk more about your life and everything you've been doing. So I just want to first talk about your Indigenous background, where you're from, your heritage, if you can introduce yourself in that way.
I am from the Mississippi Cree Nation. That's Grand Rapids, Manitoba. And that's where my father's from, and that's where I grew up mainly. And my mother's from the Scalanan Ojibwe Nation, and also in Manitoba.
Fantastic. So Indigenous on both sides.
Yes.
Fantastic. That's great. Well, I want to talk about your business first before we get into the book. So, why did you decide to do this and leave your job? Because I think you were teaching high school and then you stopped doing that. You're a professor at university now, but also have this quite unique business. Can you tell me more about the story?
Well, I still work. Mm-hmm. So I never really did leave my job. Okay. I do both.
Oh, great.
But so what my business is Featherstone Support Services, and I offer motivational workshops. And the way that started was I originally wanted to be a child psychologist. I wanted to be somebody that helped young people, because there was a point in time where somebody helped me, and life just didn't work out that way for me. I did move out to this city and try go to the big schools and stuff, but when you come from a small reserve and then you move to the city, it's just this huge culture shock. And I managed the 1 year, but everything was just, it was just too much. So I didn't end up staying in the city, and that was Winnipeg. So I went back home to the reserve and I took an EA position. And maybe about a year later, I went back to school, and this time I chose a smaller university, but they didn't have a child psychology program. So I went into teaching. So it's kind of like I stumbled onto teaching accidentally. Mm-hmm. It's not really what I wanted to go into. So when I did become a teacher, I decided to take a master's degree in guidance and counseling, because I still wanted to get into that arena of helping young people. So I ended up with a master's degree in guidance and counseling, and I found myself, working as a university professor and, still being tugged in that direction to help young people. So I decided to, pull together my research, my experience in working with people, my experience in education as a university professor, and I developed some workshops. And I decided to put them out there, hit the road with my workshops and see what happened. And each year they would just get better and better and more developed until I decided to start a business where I would just, solely offer motivational and educational workshops. And so I had to do the workshops and keep my job so that I could put food on the table and pay my
Exactly.
bills.
Well, you gotta feed like 8 children plus yourself and your husband, but that's a lot of
Yeah.
plates.
Yeah. And not all of our kids live with us right now. Like
Mm.
some of them are older and
Oh,
out on
okay.
their own. But
Mhm.
at one point in time, there were most of the kids were under one roof, and we still, like, financially, even today, we still provide for all of our children.
That's really nice. That's really sweet to hear.
Yeah.
So, how was the reception like with those workshops? As time go by, like, what's been the general consensus of the workshop, and how do you feel once they complete it?
Well, and that's really how it grew, was by word of mouth. Was I would do a workshop in one community, and then they would like the results, and then whoever brought me in, would phone up somebody, you know, um, in the neighboring community, or they would talk about it at a conference or something, and it would spread by word of mouth. And some of the feedback I was getting was that they were cutting their numbers of people on or Indigenous youth from ages 18 to 29. They were cutting those numbers on social assistance in half after
Wow.
taking the workshop. So that's the kind of feedback that I was getting, was that their numbers on social assistance or welfare, whatever I don't know what you'd call it, but
Hmm. Same thing.
those numbers were being cut because people were motivated to either go back to school or get into the workforce and, just like really start setting goals, grab hold of their life and want to do stuff. So then I started going into more and more and more communities until I was beginning to see myself being stretched really thin.
Hmm.
And that's when I decided to develop a train the trainer program,
Hmm.
because I was like, okay, there's only one of me.
Hmm.
And I can't get into all of these communities. So I started training community service providers and they would buy my workshop and I would train them. And then they would buy the workshop so they wouldn't have any more obligation to me.
Hmm.
They would be able to take that workshop and deliver it in their own communities
Hmm.
so that they could help their young people.
That's amazing. So you've seen some great results come out of this, obviously.
Yes, I've had some, really good feedback. A lot of people would contact me after and just, tell me how much their life has changed. And sometimes we didn't hit people because they weren't ready, but at least they got the information. And when they are ready, they're going to have that stored somewhere in the back of their mind.
Mhm. Now, speaking of inspiration and a lot of the great things that you're doing, you just published a book, November 2020. I just talked about it in the intro there. So I want to talk about the process of how that came to be. From what I understood, it's been sort of an ongoing 7-year project, and then COVID hit, and then things changed. So tell me that story.
Well, yeah, it's been a long process because I've wanted to write ever since high school, maybe even young, if I can go back like to grade school, I knew that I wanted to write. And, as an adult, I would write down ideas all the time. I would be jotting down ideas like, when I write a book, this is what's going to happen, and this is what's going to happen. And I started developing this female character. And finally, around 2012 or 2013, the idea of Tiger Lily came into my mind. And I just thought, you know what? Nobody's told her tale. She's a character that we were introduced to, and she always stayed in my mind because when you see an Indigenous character on TV for however long, like small of a role they played, you remember it. because when you see somebody like yourself that you're not used to seeing on TV, you remember. So she stayed in my mind, and I decided to start writing her story because the character that I was developing, it just fit so nicely with her.
Hmm.
And I thought, her story is left untold. So I started writing her story, and come no when COVID hit in March, I had probably had around 10 or 11 chapters fully written,
Hmm.
and the rest were all developed. And it had taken me 7 years to get those 10 chapters down, because I was, constantly picking it up, putting it down, picking it up, putting it down,
Hmm.
trying to fit it into to my busy life.
Hmm.
And when COVID hit, and I just told my husband, I was like, you know what, it's now or never. I said, I'm being given this gift of time. And if I don't use this time, because I was praying for this time, I
Hmm.
was crying for this time, I was
Hmm.
begging for this time. And then when it came, I said, if I don't use it, then I don't deserve to finish this book, because I've been wanting it for a long time. And so he said, okay, we're going to do this. And he would throw me out of the house every morning around 8 or 9 in the morning. And I would go drive out to the lake, and I would sit in my truck, and I would put my laptop on my lap, and I would sit there for about 4 or 5 hours a day, just writing by the water. And there was no cell service there. So I didn't have to worry about being distracted by anything. And I could just write.
Hmm.
And, there were times that I knew that I was going to have to write some really big events. And um, there's some pretty big things that happen in the book. And on the days that I would have to write those pieces, I would pray, I would meditate, I would ask for guidance, and I would ask the God, the creator, to send the words to me, and just to make sure that the words, they were helpful.
Hmm.
Because I was always very cognizant in the back of my mind, as I didn't want to offend anybody, because the character herself already, that fictional character that was created by J.M. Barrie and then later um, recreated by Disney, was already offensive to
Hmm.
Indigenous people. So I wanted to make sure that the character that I was creating, wasn't offensive, and that it was going to be helpful and not hurtful,
Hmm.
because I really was rewriting a narrative, like this old age narrative, like age old narrative that was out there already. And also was somewhere in the back of my mind too. It's like there's people there that love classics. They're gonna crucify you because you are changing, on like a literature, like a piece of history. But I kept on telling myself, I'm writing. I'm not writing for them.
Hmm.
I'm writing for the young people that are going to see this character, this Indigenous character, and that she's going to become a part of mainstream literature now, and they're going to see themselves in her. So I'm writing for those young people. Everybody else, I have to silence what they're going to think or what they're going to say.
Hmm.
And I've already had a couple people throw some negative criticism towards me about taking on that character because of the stereotypes.
Yeah, I was going to ask sort of a follow-up question in regards to the overall reception. You've told me a lot of good things, but I mean,
Yeah,
let's address like so you've had a bit of pushback, I'm assuming, from that character.
just a little.
Yeah.
And that's the and I don't know why we do this to ourselves, because when I was getting ready to release the book, I was so terrified, and I was like, oh, what are people going to say? Like, what are the critics going to say? And I don't know why I was thinking about what they were going to think,
Hmm.
and then I didn't realize that there were so many other people that were praising the story, and that they were phoning me and messaging me, like sometimes 2 in the morning, in my inbox, and
Hmm.
telling me that they finished reading the book and they were in tears and they were so happy. And I really wish that my mind would have focused on what they were going to feel. Instead, I was worried about the naysayers, and there's only been a few, and
Yeah.
people that were saying, like, why would she take on a character that has such a racist stereotype tied to it?
Yeah.
And then, but it's because because she's there,
Hmm.
she's already been created, and there was a narrative that needed to be rewritten.
Hmm.
And even like a couple of years ago, there was a remake of Peter Pan, and the girl that they used to play Tiger Lily,
Hmm.
she wasn't even Indigenous.
Oh yeah. No, I
Yeah,
heard
so
about that.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, so it's like, there's some certain things that need to be put out there that, like, there's certain changes that need to be made.
Hmm.
So, um, when I was able to really wrap my head around that and just remember where the story came from when I was writing, and how the story would come to me, especially on the when I was sitting by the water, and how fast the story would come, and sometimes it came so fast I couldn't even keep up.
Hmm.
And so I would trust in where the story came from, and that gave me courage to put it out there.
Well, I'm glad your husband took the time every day to kick you out of the house to get this done. And from what I've seen online, I haven't had a chance to read the book yet, but based off of the overall online reception, it seems like it was well written and well put together and well thought out. And there does seem to be quite a good reception of your book online. So I'm glad you took the time to write this book. Quickly before we move on, how do people get access to your book? I know you have a website. There's some links to Amazon and whatnot. If you just want to give me dish out the good stuff for people that are listening or watching right now.
A lot of people like to go on Amazon to get their books. That's the go-to place. And I love when I see when when people buy books on Amazon,
Hmm.
I see myself climbing. Like, I hit number one back in December, which was amazing. Like, that was one of my goals, and it when it happened so fast, I was just blown away. You can also order it through my website at jillfeatherstone.com. So
Hmm.
there's a link there where you can order books, and then you get them faster if you order through me.
Okay, there you go. That's cool.
And I also donate a percentage of each book. I donate money to Indigenous youth leadership initiatives.
That's great. That's good. So you're donating and you're providing people with a great novel with some good new perceptions and new narratives on an interesting character. So that's great. I'm excited, and I am going to order the book. I do. Talking about it and talking to you, I think it's inevitable that I got to order a book from you and and get to reading this. So that's awesome.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I also offer discounts to schools. I offer discounts to youth organizations, and you can also find that on my website at jillfeatherstone.com.
do you have discounts for hosts of talk shows, podcasts, TV shows?
Usually, hosts of my podcasts would get a free book.
Oh, okay. Well, we're gonna figure that out, and if there's an autograph on the front page, I wouldn't complain either. Uh,
For sure.
um, okay,
For sure.
so we got to wrap it up soon, but I want to talk a bit about your future. And I like talking about this on podcasts. I like when people ask me it too because it makes me think, it throws me off, and it gets me thinking about the future in a positive way. So if you're thinking about Jill Featherstone in the next 5 years, 10 years, what does that outlook look like for you?
Well, I see myself sitting in a movie theater watching The Tale of Tiger Lily on the big screen.
That'd be cool.
And I see myself, taking my place in paving the way for Indigenous young people to come and take their place,
Mhm.
in whatever their dreams are. So that's really where I see myself, is just being somebody that is there to help show them the way and help pave the way and make them have a little bit more easier time trying to chase those dreams.
Hmm.
I also see myself being retired from my job so that I can become a full-time writer.
That would be so nice, wouldn't it? That's so cool.
Mhm.
Well, I like that. That's a good outlook, and I hope you get there. That would be amazing. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people have the thing that they do for work and make money, and the thing that they really want to do, and hope that one day that will become a success. So I definitely wish you well, and I hope that reality comes true for you.
Me
In
too.
closing, I like asking some of my guests, a fun surprise question at the end. So I wanted to ask you. What's if I'd say indigenous dish or an indigenous food that brings you joy, or your favorite kind of indigenous dish, what would it be?
Hmm. Well, that's okay. So I actually got asked this question not too long ago, and I was like, right away, I was like, Indian tacos,
Yeah.
because I haven't been able to have them.
Okay. Yeah.
Since there's no powwows right now
Yeah.
and
That's the
there's
best
no
place to
hockey
get them, that's for
tournaments.
sure. Yeah.
Yes. And when you make them at home, it's like it's not the same.
I
It isn't the
think,
same.
like you could probably make it exactly the same, but I think you lose the thrill of actually being out
Yes.
at an event, getting it out of a food truck.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I feel you, because I've had, like, one of my favorite is like I had at a powwow 2 years ago, just on the border between Alberta and Saskatchewan, and it was it was a bison burger, but the bison was in a chili format, so it was like a Indian chili bison inside a bannock burger. It was amazing, and I've tried to replicate it at home, and there's just no way.
Yeah, for sure. But you know what? I'm really lucky though. But my dad, like my brother is an avid hunter, and my dad makes sure that our deep freeze is always full of wild meat and fish, everything,
That's
all the
awesome.
time.
That's good. It's
Yeah.
good. It's nice to have healthy protein in the freezer. I like hunting too, so I like having a deer or two in the freezer. That's for sure. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jill Featherstone, for being on the show. An Indigenous author, blogger, motivational speaker, an all-around fantastic person, a mother of 8 and a grandmother of 4. Sounds like you have a lot on your plate, but you're taking it with pride, and you're getting some amazing results with whatever time you can take to produce, whether it's your novel, your business, or the future where you're going to hopefully continue to write more books, and I'm looking forward to it. Jill, thank you once again for coming on to Our Native Land.
Thank you.